Welcome everybody to Teachers Convention. This session will be talking about Tales from the Great Divide. I'm Bridget, this is Mark. We're both teachers with Grand Yellowhead School Division, and we, this last summer, hiked 1,250-ish kilometers from Waterton to Kakwa Lake, which is about 300 kilometers north of Jasper, and we're going to tell you about some of our adventures and so on. So Mark, want to introduce us?
Sure. A little background about Bridget and I is we were raised in the prairies in southern Saskatchewan. Always had a longing for the mountains and had an opportunity to move to Whitecourt 2013, and then in 2017 got a chance to move to Jasper National Park. And since then we have immersed ourselves in the Rocky Mountains. We backpack, we thru hike, we scramble. It's been quite an adventure for the last 4 years. Every weekend we're out doing something. And the GDT was just a next obvious evolution of our adventures.
Yep. So we had bought the Great Divide Trail book years ago and kind of had it on our bedside table with, various other hiking books. And every January, of course, that's usually when Parks Canada puts up the reservations. And so last January, I was thumbing through it. Although they did then postpone it till April, but I was still looking in January because I think just out of habit. And thumbing through the Great Divide Trail book and looking at the section A is in Waterton. And we love Waterton, the red rocks and all the flowers and
good, the water, yeah.
Good scrambles and such there. And so I was looking at that route there and I'm like, oh geez, that looks really cool. The section from Waterton from the border to Coleman. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then I kept flipping through and I came across section E, which is mostly the Jasper section. It's from Sask Crossing here to Jasper. And there's a lot of that we've done, like the Brazo section and the Skyline. We've done those, but there's also little kind of in-between sections that we hadn't done. So I thought it would be really cool to be able to connect that all. So I'm like, okay, section A, section E. Awesome. And I mentioned to Mark, like, these sound amazing, and he agreed.
Definitely agreed, yeah.
Yeah, and then I kind of kept flipping, and I'm like, well, geez, like section C sounds amazing. That's the one that goes through some Kananaskis and Banff, and then it just kind of like twigged in my mind, like, well, maybe you just hike from Waterton to Jasper. And so I brought that up to Mark. He said, like, hey, like, we should hike from Waterton to Jasper. And he kind of laughed, and so I was like, I didn't think
you were serious.
Yeah, he didn't think I was serious. And I don't know if I was all the way serious, because otherwise why wouldn't I have said, like, no, I'm serious. But so then the next day I had been kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, no, like, I really think this would be a really cool thing to do with our summer. And so I brought it up again and said, like,
well, and I had looked at sections F and G, which are north of Jasper, and was amazed by the wilderness up there. So that was just when she said the second time, let's do it, there was no question we were doing it.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of making the plan and making it official.
Yeah.
We announced it in
about a year ago. Yeah, it was in January. And so we were like, yep, we're gonna hike from Waterton to Jasper. So I started a spreadsheet. So I'm a math teacher, science teacher. Organization makes me happy, as does color coding. So I started my spreadsheet, and we figured, we'd start July 1st. And I just started putting in mileages, and roughly like 20 to like 25 kilometers a day on average.
Yeah, about that.
And then as I got through, I got so that we were in Jasper, and it was about midway through August. So I was kind of happy with that plan for a while, and then
well, we thought we could just like hang out in Jasper for the rest of the summer and chill, but
bag some peaks.
We still had another 14 days.
Yeah, so we're like, and I'm looking at sections F and G, the ones that go north from here, and doing the math, and I'm like, we could actually finish and do the whole thing, and we've never done anything besides, like, we've done Mount Robson, which is one of the northern termini of the Great Divide Trail.
Yes.
But we figured if we're doing the Great Divide Trail, we're gonna go like all the way to the highest northern terminus.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, we're hiking from home from Waterton to home to Jasper. So why not get a ride up there? It's very remote, the Kakwa Northern Terminus. So we thought it would be easier to get the ride up there and then hike home again. So we're both hiking home both times. So and I like quickly put in the math, and it had us finishing the day before we had to be like our butts back in
August 30th,
in school.
we started back at school,
Yeah.
and we got it right down to the 29th. We'd be walking home on the highway
Yeah.
that day, 29th.
Yeah. So there was our plan, and we announced it, and we kind of, we had the plan, but we also thought of like maybe some backups, etc., because we know how Parks Canada is for booking. It's incredibly challenging to get what you want, because of course there's tens of thousands of other people that would also like to spend time in the Canadian Rockies. So that was in like January and or beginning of February, and so we had to wait because of course good old COVID, and Parks Canada decided to postpone the reservation date to April. And not only did they postpone it, but they put all of them together, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So usually the Jasper and the Banff Kootenay Yoho, they're separate, but the Parks Canada decided it's a good idea to put them all on the same day. So
fast forward to booking day, which is in April.
The great day of booking.
Great day of booking.
I like to call it.
We had in our townhouse, we had 8 Chromebooks open to the server. Bridget had 4 friends who had a couple Chromebooks open as well.
I had trained them in the weeks coming up what to put in.
I had a couple friends from my school who, same thing, had a couple Chromebooks open, and all of the Chromebooks that we had were all in the queue, and we were 30-minute, 40-minute wait, and we got one that was at 146 in line.
The one that was in the kitchen. 146 in line. So like I think our highest one was about 17,000 in 17 thousandths in line, and there was like a bunch of 10s and 12s.
So I timed it. Bridget got online, the queue came up at 8:10 because it opened at 8 o'clock. She was on at 8:10. She was done booking 8 different permits. So it's like permit where you had 3 or 4 different campsites that you had to get before anybody else in order to make sure your timeline worked with your mileage. And she was done in 7 minutes. She hit the enter, and I was on a computer waiting for confirmation, and lo and behold, we got it. And at 8:20, the system, the whole system crashed on everybody. They were not happy. The Facebook was wild that day.
There was it was palpable in the air, the discontent. There's probably some of them listening that know this, but so we were so very lucky. We were so grateful that we got all of most of them. I think there was one that were like, oh darn, we wanted that, but we made it work. We didn't have to do any crazy days. Like I said, I think our biggest day of the whole summer it was a couple of 33-kilometer days. But yeah, so we got all of our permits, and then we did find out later that we had some calling in to Parks Canada, because of course they're not all online. We had to phone the
backcountry office.
The backcountry office for some of the North Jasper stuff, and also some in the Howes River floodplain. You have to actually phone in. So booking online, calling, and then of course there was some of the Kananaskis. We tried to get into Astor Lake, for example, and like holy crap, like they went so quick. So no luck there. So that it ended up being great, because we ended up, if you bip on over the divide there and drop down into I'm kind of getting ahead. We'll talk about this. If you camp in the height of the Rockies in a BC provincial park, you're allowed random camping there. Leave no trace, of course, but and that was a really cool experience.
That was really good.
But so that was our April, was the booking, and just kind of tightening up all our schedules and planning, and so then from April, May, June, we ordered. So once we knew that we were gonna go there, like we announced that we were gonna go, but of course if we didn't get the permits, like you can't. That would have changed our summer plans. But, so I was gonna say we started ordering all the food, so we ordered about like $2,000 worth of freeze-dried food. We tried one weekend. We were proud of ourselves because we did some dehydrated spaghetti. We're like, this is gonna be awesome. Look at all the money we're gonna save.
It was bad.
It was so bad.
It was not. I couldn't live off that for 2 months.
No,
there's no way. So yeah, we purchased freeze-dried meals. We bought a bunch of bars. We bought a bunch of freeze-dried fruit, and had it all shipped to Jasper. And we kind of throughout the next 2 months just put them into bags day by day. Made a couple bags for Section A, Section B, and so on. So it was a bit of a process, but I'm glad we had 2 months to do it. I can't imagine trying to do it in 2 or 3 weeks. It would have been a real madhouse.
No. Yeah, and as it got closer and like we sat down and actually made all the bins. So we are very lucky and fortunate to have close friends that when we told them what we were doing, they volunteered to help resupply us. So when you're doing a through hike and you're going from section to section, it's normal to have to mail yourself the packages or resupply in a town like when you come out to Jasper's big enough, you can resupply here. And I think Coleman would be another one
was a good place,
that you could resupply there. But of course, things like gas canisters for our stove, and then the freeze-dried meals themselves. So we bought so many of them in bulk on purpose so that it worked them down to about, what was it like? It was under $10 a meal.
Yeah,
right.
It was $9.50 or something.
Yeah, but if you have to just go to a store and buy them, some of them are $20, right?
Yeah.
Or almost 20, maybe $18. $18 to buy one. So you don't really want to be doing that. So our friends agreed to help us out, and Chris and Kirsty. And
should we call them trail angels?
Trail angels. Well, yeah.
Yes.
So that's another part of it. We learned a lot about the through hiking culture. The Great Divide Trail is a pretty young through hike compared to the through hikes of the States. So ones you might be familiar with. So the Pacific Crest Trail, PCT, the Continental Divide Trail, CDT, and then the Appalachian Trail, the AT, have been around since the 70s.
Actually, before
they were established
as scenic trails
in government, as a scenic trail in the 70s. Whereas the GDT, there's still sections that are definitely route
it's still
finding.
I think an unofficial trail in the view of Parks Canada.
Yeah. I don't think and I think it's because it goes through so many different types of land. It goes through like forestry and mining and all that.
Wildernesses.
Yeah, wilderness area, provincial parks, national parks, wilderness areas, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the planning. So we talked about getting the permits. We talked about getting all our food together. We got new backpacks. We were always Osprey fans, love them. But an Osprey pack completely empty is 5 pounds. Which never really kind of mattered before because we were always doing 5 to 10 day trips. Our 10-day trips we resupplied ourselves, but we figured that we should probably go a little bit lighter.
It wasn't uncommon for a 7-day trip for my pack to be 55 pounds and Bridget's to be over 40. But doing big miles and big elevation on the Great Divide, we had to get it down to
because those ones we almost never bipped into the over 20 kilometers.
No.
But for this Great Divide Trail, we were going to be living in the 20 to 30 kilometer range.
Every day.
Yeah, so in order to be sustainable, we needed to cut the weight down.
What was your base weight?
I don't know. That's one of the questions. What's your base weight? I don't know. At the beginning of each section, my pack usually weighed around 30 pounds. And yours was around...
Mine varied between 42 and 44 pounds, depending if it was, a bigger stretch where we had to do more of a food carry, but just over 40.
We're not terribly lightweight.
No, we're not ultra light like some of these people.
We carry... Anybody who hikes with us knows our addiction to coffee. So we always bring way more coffee. We brought a lightweight tarp. Which actually that wasn't the bulk of things. That was very light from Hyperlight Mountain Company, I think it's called. Loved that tarp. More on that later. But what were some other things that we did to cut our our trail weight.
Our trail weight? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we narrowed down our sleeping pads. We bought an Uber Light from X Light, and it's like 6 or 7 ounces compared to almost a pound. The ones we retired.
Well, were they Neo Airs?
Neo Airs.
They were the yellow ones, yeah. And what I noticed more than the weight was just that the new ones were so much smaller, pure like volume. Literally half the volume. Which when my pack was 50 liters.
Yeah, mine was 62.
62. Yeah. So the volume is also important too. So yeah, so the super light pads, we had lighter, not lighter, 3 pounds. We need to weigh those again. They're under 3 pounds. Are sleeping bags.
Yes.
The Nemo Rave.
Yeah,
and I have the Disco, or it might be vice versa. They're both Nemo. I really like them. They're the mummy bags. I like getting in there. Weirdly though, I slept hot all summer. Usually I'm freezing, but I had it open most of the time. So I think for the future, we're gonna try. There's something out there called quilts. What are they called? Sleeping quilts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we're gonna try those. But yeah, but that's for the future. Yeah. So back to the GDT. So we've planned the permits. We've got our food. We've arranged for our friends to resupply us. They even agreed twice. They hiked in and brought our new supply with them. Yeah. Can't thank them enough. It made it so smooth. Made it so that we didn't have to do crazy big kilometers in order to finish in the 60 days.
Lots of people will get off trail to go resupply in a few of those sections, which means you have to take a 10-kilometer detour out, and then a 10K in. So and then you're adding a day to your permit.
The time in town. So lots of people come out at sunshine, for example, out via Healy Creek, and we'll bip into Banff. But that's where one of the places they resupplied us. The other place was Barrel Creek, which would be another place you'd have to come out in section B. Mm-hmm. I don't know what other people did for that. I think other people just did more miles than us.
I think so too. Shortened up their day.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the training that we did.
Sure.
Because that kind of would have been the next, once we realize, okay, we're making this happen. I'd say that the Great Day booking was in April 16th. I'd say May is where we really amped up. May and June.
Yeah, we did. I want to say 4 big backpacks this spring, starting at May long weekend, and I think every weekend from that point we were doing 20 to 25 kilometers with packs for a 2-night overnight. So that helped, and then during midweek we would get home from work, put on the shoes, and try to knock out 13, 14, sometimes 18 kilometers after school. But I think one thing, if we were ever to do it again, definitely do more elevation training with weight.
Yep, that's we did do a couple of scrambles or go up Roche Mayette, etc. But we didn't put 30 pounds on our back. But in retrospect, we should have. Not right away, build to that kind of thing. But I think that would have really helped us in section A. There were some steep bits that we made it. We chug-a-lugged up it, but I think there could have been 50% less struggle if we had done that. And it took us about, was it 10 days to 2 weeks before I remember it was in section B, and we were going up this ridge, and all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't leaning on my pole so much to get up. I was actually using my quad muscles. They engaged. And from there it did get better. Yeah. But yeah, we would definitely, if you're training for a thru hike, don't forget to do elevation. We did. We are of course spoiled that we live in Jasper, and right out our front door we can hit up onto Pyramid Bench, and that's I think we just did a hike the other day, and it's almost 200 meters just to get up.
Just out our back door,
which that's significant, right? It's no, there were some days that our elevation gain was 1,600 meters over the course of the day. But I think when we train again, we'll be doing those ones with our 30 pounds on our back. Yeah. Not just I think we did a lot with like 20 pounds on our back.
We did.
But there's a big difference if you've ever had 20 pounds on your back and 30 pounds on your back, or 30 and 40. It's a significant difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, so May we did 300 kilometers, all just after work and weekends. And then unfortunately I kind of I tweaked my...
We overtrained
a bit. I also have horribly wonky knees and ankle now. I've had both knee surgeries for ACL and meniscus, and then April 2020 I broke my ankle. I found the last piece of ice in Jasper and slipped on it and broke my fibula, but broke it well enough that I needed a plate and 6 screws. So I actually healed up, I think, really good. I was terrified that I had ruined my summer. Yeah, but that was a good summer. But yeah, so
yeah, that's training basically.
Yeah.
So then I guess we can start talking about the sections. We started on section A on July 1st down in Waterton. And if we talk a little bit about Waterton, it's beautiful. It's got these gorgeous red rocks that, you know, cap out on the peaks when you're crossing over the passes. And they've got these lakes that are all snow-fed and
glacier-fed.
It is just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So we started there, and it took us 5 days to get to Coleman from that point.
Well, but we did our first 2 days basically just as day hiking.
That's true, yeah.
A friend lent us his cabin, so we're kind of spoiled. It's called slack packing when you do that. So our first day, we just went and tagged the border and came back. And then the second day we went from that spot, and we were big about like boots on the ground. So like we went in between all the sections. And then we went up the Carthew Alderson, which is a beautiful day hike. If you needed something to do in Waterton and you're not afraid of some elevation, Carthew Alderson is beautiful. You go up past Cameron Falls to Alderson Lake, and then up to Carthew Lakes, and then up to it's called the Summit, but it's the pass, and you look into Glacier National Park. Chapman Peak, Wardeman Lake was awesome, and then you drop down to Summit Lake, and then drop down again to Cameron Lake, and then we had a road walk because we needed to get to cover the ground to where we were going to start the next day at Roe Lakes Trailhead, which was then our 5-day backpack. Yeah. So our friend on that day 3 dropped us off, all loaded up, and then we like started because that's when it felt like it was official there, right? We were just doing the other stuff. And
that was one of my favorite days, that day from Roe.
How come?
Well, just you getting up. This pass is the second highest pass on the GDT, so you get up there really fast, and you're looking down on some beautiful lakes, and you're looking into Waterton, you're looking west into the Castle provincial area, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah,
it was a challenging day. We did 26 kilometers that day with a pack,
full pack,
and there was a forest fire in 2017, I
think so. The Kenau, Kenau,
come up from the BC side. So we walked through some of the remnants of that fire, and it was very interesting to see the new growth coming in. We have these old scarred logs, and these raspberry bushes and huckleberry bushes and bear grass. Yeah, all new growth from this blackened soil. It was very hot.
Oh my gosh.
It was very hot.
Yeah, and that was at the end of, the big heat wave at the end of June did carry a little bit into July. So that day was warm. I hate wearing shorts when I hike because you just scratched up. But I had actually decided to wear shorts for this section because it was going to be into the 30s, and we just decided that we should.
Yeah, well, we looked like we were wearing black socks by the end of the day. Yeah. Because the sunscreen on our legs.
Sunscreen, bug spray.
Combined with the black soot.
Ash.
The ash. Just, I had, my legs were completely black by the end of the day there.
Yeah. So then, so that was an awesome day, and we stayed at Twin Lakes. And so that was one of the permits that we had to get. Wasn't that one of the first permits we had to get?
It was. We had to phone down to Waterton and
you
get
phone
it.
that one.
I think it was before the actual permit date.
How many permits did we end up having? Like a dozen? Like between like Waterton
Well, I think
and
that
then
would
like
have been
8,
9, right?
and then because we had the ones that we had to call. Let's say
Closer
a dozen.
yeah.
Maybe not quite, but yeah. Whereas, for example, the Pacific Crest Trail that I mentioned, you just have to get one permit, and it's free.
And that's 2,600 miles,
which is 4,300 kilometers, which is like 3 times as much as this one. This trail, it probably cost us just for permits. Oh dang, what did this cost us? I'll figure it out and I'll put the number up in the video. I'm gonna say like 400.
Probably
for just
400,
permits. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. But yeah, so Twin Lakes was awesome. So yeah, other great things about Section A, like actually the next day, there's a lot of good things about Section A, which is why it had originally interested me so much. The next day from Twin Lakes, which the food prep at Twin Lakes, there's 2 food preps. One of the food prep is right off the lake. It's beautiful. And you can actually see Sage Pass, which is the pass that you are going to tackle next. And so that morning we got up to the pass, and then you kind of angle down, and then for the rest of the day, after you hit up the next ridge, you're on a ridge, like almost the entire day. And I gotta say that the views there were
spectacular.
Fabulous. Yeah, and like we actually even had a small day from there to Scarp Pass is where we stayed. That was only, I think, 16 kilometers. We got there like at 4 o'clock, had a nap. It was beautiful.
And the beauty about this section from Twin Lakes to Coleman is you don't need a national parks permit because you're in a wildland or the Castle Wilderness.
Yeah.
And provincial park. And so you can just, they've got these campsites set up, and it's first come, first serve, and they're quite large. So I think
like Scarp Pass, we could have definitely fit more people there. Some of them, like at Scarp Pass, the water source was a little meager, but it wasn't bad. It was still good. But that next section, just to kind of warn people, like we're scramblers. So if you're also scramblers, this is for you. But if you haven't pushed up a scree slope to a peak, this would be very, very challenging. And to add to that challenge, the morning that we did, so it's called the Culotte Peak, and then we went off onto Barnaby Alternate, more on that. So up to La Culotte Peak, we were in the clouds the entire morning.
We had gotten up early to tackle this big day and the big elevation, and the clouds were so low you couldn't see the peak above us.
Yeah.
So we waited almost 2 hours before we decided that we had to go.
Yeah. And
we're in marshmallow cloud till 1 o'clock that afternoon.
Well, I think so. We got up to the peak. It was between 12 and 1. And we sat up at the peak, and we were kind of like, anytime now it's going to clear. Because you could kind of see every now and then, right? You'd see like little, the clouds would, the clouds would part. And so we're like, well, screw this, let's just get going. And so as we went to try to find the way down to the Barnaby Alternate, the clouds just magically lifted, and we actually got sunshine. It was very magical. But then that section down to the Barnaby Alternate, there were a few spicy sections that as long as you're like careful and you're like very much thinking ahead of like where you're gonna step next, etc., it wasn't bad. There was the one that kind of freaked me out, but we made it. And also it was because we had the heavy packs that it was one of the reasons why it freaked me out, because it's completely different climbing a mountain with a day pack and climbing one with 5 days of gear and food, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the Barnaby Alternate kicked our butts.
Yeah. We were scheduled to do 2,000 meters of elevation that day.
I may have overestimated our abilities.
We were struggling to get those miles and meters done.
Yeah.
Ran into a storm, like a big thunderstorm rolled in just before to tackle a high peak, and so we hunkered down hoping it would pass. And we decided to dry camp at this little place, just big enough to put our tents down.
The lightning and the thunder was booming, and so we figured we'd be stupid to push on. Plus, it was later in the day. We were hiking with Sean at that point. We had met him actually on our first day at the border and realized that our itinerary was going to kind of match up. So then we decided from Twin Lakes, or I guess it would have been like after Sage Pass, where we like met up, and so we had decided we were going to hike with each other for these scrambly sections, just because the more the merrier, and safety in numbers and all that kind of thing. And he's a beast. He's like an ultra runner, so he was fine. He would have made it there, I'm sure.
I think he would have.
Yeah, but we were struggling that day, and so we ended up dry camping. So that was one of the only times.
Should we tell them what dry camping is?
Oh, that means that there's no water source nearby. Good. Yeah. So we had luckily we were hiking with Sean, and he decided to go on ahead, volunteered to go on ahead and drop down to, it's called Grizzly Lake, to grab us some water so that we could keep going. And it was perfect because by the time we got there, he got up there, and like poor bastard had to do, it was like 1,000 feet of elevation.
He dropped right down.
He was tuckered, let me tell you. And also in retrospect, we should have stayed there.
Yeah.
And which, of course, everything retrospect. I remember planning this like back in like January, February, when I was like doing all the crunching the numbers and thinking like, oh, that would be a logical place to stay. But then it would mean you'd have to carry an extra day of food, of course, which we were already, I think that section, wasn't that 6 days?
I think so.
We had said 5, but I think it was 6. And so then that would have been an extra day.
Yeah.
I'll put what it was.
Extra 4 pounds, basically.
Yeah. So we had decided to push on, which was silly. Perhaps if it had been in like August when we were in like super shape, but not the first section. So if you ever do, we definitely recommend staying at Grizzly Lake. It looked beautiful down there. I think it would be an excellent little spot. Of course, you have to drop down and then gain that elevation, but unless you're like, we do know of people that did make this whole trail. So it is possible, but I think if you're going to enjoy yourself, there's definitely an argument for staying at Grizzly Lake.
If we hadn't woke up the clouds and left when we planned and didn't wait on top of La Culotte.
And it took us a while too, because we were constantly looking at our GPS. Yeah. Because like everything was in clouds. Like usually you can just see your route, right? And then you don't have to check as much. So that took some time. It was raining on us. Yeah. So, but you never know what you're going to get, right? So, but yeah, so we dry camped, and the next morning.
Well, it was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. I don't know exactly what elevation we were at, although I probably have that data written down. But from that point to the next peak, was it like an hour and a half? Probably.
Yeah.
And like to be up high, like in the morning sun, and like you could see out onto the prairies. What's that lake? Beaver Mines?
Beaver Mines.
Okay.
That's right.
You could see all like the mashed potato clouds out there. And, oh, ouch. Sorry, my cat's distracting us because he keeps playing underneath the camera, of course. All the other places in the living room to play, and he needs to play right underneath the camera. Anyway, so we made it ourselves up to, like Burnaby Summit is probably what it was called. And oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. And like looking back down the valley, and that was kind of a special moment. However, we couldn't enjoy it for too long, but because we had chosen to camp prior to where we were supposed to, we had to make up. And so that was our first day that we had to hike 33 kilometers. And how many meters of elevation? 1,600?
1,600.
Probably.
It was an up and down,
it was a day.
up and down day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but from that point, like there was some scrambling. The GDTA though, or somebody's come in and put orange markers on the way up, so it was intuitive to go. But there was a little bit of scrambling, and but from that Barnaby Point until you get to South Fork Peak.
South Fork.
it's all your ridges, and it's amazing. And like at one point you look, like you can see the prairies, you can see we could see Crow's Nest Mountain.
Yeah.
We could see what was the little resort?
The Castle Mountain
Resort.
Yeah.
Which that's the regular GDT trail from Le Culotte Peak. Instead of dropping down to Barnaby, you drop down to another, and I think you actually have a rough climb too. I don't think there's an easy way off Le Culotte Peak.
But once you're off La Culotte, you're in the forest the entire way, which is the appeal of going up on the ridge,
the high,
Ridge.
So yeah, like if you don't love exposure, I don't know if Barnaby Ridge is for you. I think you would not have a good time. That you should take the valley route. Also, like weather obviously would be a factor, but yeah. So we could see all of this, and it took us. I took so much footage in that section because it was just, what a beautiful day. Anyway, so we got to South Fork Peak, which was finally our last peak that we were going to, before we dropped down to South Fork Lakes. Oh, we should talk about our dry camp. So when we had got to our dry camp, because of the thunderstorm, we put up a tarp, our lovely tarp, Hyperlight tarp, and it poured rain on us. Yeah. And so we knew we were at a dry camp, so we gathered the water that came off the tarp. It didn't taste that good.
No.
But we split a supper because we knew we were going to have to ration. So we split a supper that night.
Yeah.
It tasted fine in the supper. It did not taste
good
not to
drink
to drink.
From the bottle, no.
But whatever, water's water. So with that, and with the water that Sean got us from Grizzly Lake, we each, the three of us, had about 750 milliliters of water.
Yeah, to start the next day.
Yeah, and so that's not enough water for 33. Well, for the first section was like 20 kilometers. So we lucked out, and there was snow patches up there, which normally we would still melt the snow and then filter it because you don't know what's peed or pooped in that snow.
Yeah,
we've seen animals, humans included, do horrible things in nature right next to water sources.
And sometimes it gets a red algae in it, which can give you some discomfort.
Yeah.
But we were lucky enough to find some good enough snowbanks.
Some good snow.
Have some snow cones from.
Yeah, we had some. So we scooped some up. I think in the first one we like put it into our filter bag, and then because we were kind of trying to make miles, so I would scoop some snow, and then I would take a sip of my lukewarm water and mix it all up in my mouth. And so we actually managed pretty good until we got down to South Fork Lakes and then Barnaby Lakes, which that's where we were supposed to have been. And so we sat at Barnaby Lake campground and had a feast. So we hadn't had coffee that morning because we were rationing, which was very hard to not have coffee before you had to climb a freaking mountain with a pack on. So we had our coffee, we made our breakfast because we also hadn't had breakfast. We like the Mountain House or the Peak Refuel, the breakfast scramble. That's what we like in the morning. We put lots of potatoes and cheese and such with it, and we split it between the two of us. It's lots. And so we had that, drank so much water, sat in the shade because by that time it was pretty hot. Yeah. And for a good hour, and that was glorious.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then carried on our way, and it was windy and hot, remember? And so yeah, Barnaby Lake, that's first come first serve too.
Yeah.
That was really pretty there, and you can, if you were to go into Barnaby, and then you could go up to South Fork Lakes and explore around there, and then it was easy to come down off South Fork Peak, so you could do little excursions from there. That would be awesome. Barnaby Lakes, and that's in the Castle Mountain Wilderness area.
I think so.
There's a bunch. There's Castle Mountain Provincial Park, and then there's a wilderness area.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we hit off that, did a steep descent down. Luckily they had switchbacked it.
Yeah, they did.
So that was good. You hit the trees, and then we were worried about this fording of the river crossing, and it was super chill, to the knees.
Yeah.
And almost a reflection. It was awesome. And so then the road walk, which was hot, and then another ascent.
which is even hotter.
Yeah, and that's where we ran into. So I get an allergic reaction, not just me, other people. It's a photoallergic reaction to cow parsnip. So the oils mixed with UV light creates a rash. And I didn't realize until it was too late that I had gone through some, which is another reason why I don't wear shorts. I wear pants. So that, oof.
Yeah,
that was...
You were quite blistered up.
Yeah, I was blistered up. And then the rest of that, I hardly remember the rest of that day because it was just like ATV trails,
yeah,
and it was kind of boring. And so like the three of us basically just took turns telling stories.
Yeah.
Bear stories.
And,
Sean had been over to, it was Africa, right? Yeah. And so he was telling us like those type of animal stories. It was good. And then 33 kilometers later at like 8:30 at night.
Yeah, it was pretty late when we got into Lynx Campground.
Yeah, Lynx Campground.
Which is the one before the end of Section A.
Yeah, that's kind of the last one. And then the next day we had another 33 kilometer push. But that was definitely an easier 33 kilometers.
It was.
Because you didn't have to like go up, and then I think we went down more that day than we went up. Yeah. But yeah, so Lynx Creek Campground, you can drive to. Obviously we didn't, and I think it's like you have to bring cash. It's like it was $20 something. I don't know. It was like a weird amount, but we really only spent like I don't know. Like we got
just enough time to sleep.
9 o'clock, and then Sean left early the next morning because he wasn't taking a zero in Coleman. A zero is like a complete day off where you resupply, do your laundry, etc. So he left early because he wanted to enjoy his afternoon. We were taking a 0 day, so we kind of just took our time, and it wasn't an easy trail. Like there was they do the, what's that trail run called?
Is it the Sinister Seven?
Yeah, they do it there, but like there are these like, it's beautiful up on the ridge, Willoughby Ridge. But the trail, is it an ATV trail? I think it is.
It is an ATV
There's lots of ATV trails in there. It's crazy. But there's these like shot put sized rocks. And like I actually turned my ankle, and like I turned it enough that it had like the bruise mark along the side. I just like, what do? You walk it off. But I don't know how people run that and not break ankles.
Yeah. They must have medical stations everywhere.
Yeah, no kidding. I would like to see the data on that. Like how many people a year freaking break a fibula.
Yeah.
Or like, because if you're to fall, anyway. Yeah. So, but it was interesting. We weren't excited to be on ATV trails. Because passing an ATV when you're hiking is not enjoyable, but everybody was really nice. Yep. Like everybody was curious.
They were curious enough. They slowed down to talk.
What are these people doing?
And they didn't go ripping by us, choking us out with their dust. So we appreciated that.
Yeah. And then so we got to Coleman, and felt very accomplished because we had completed the first section, and we stopped at. There's an alternate route that you can do so that you're not walking the highway. And it's by the Crow's Nest River. It was actually really pretty, and it goes past a like a trailer park. Is that what that, like, remember there was like RVs and stuff?
Yes, that was on.
Would you call it a trailer park?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, we're gonna call it a trailer park. It was really pretty. The trailer park was okay. Anyway, I digress. And then so that was Coleman, and so we stopped there, and our friends met us and gave us our boxes.
A resupply box.
So we resupplied and
ate a lot of food.
Ate so much food. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What was the place called that we ate at? It was on the main drive. I'll figure it out and I'll put it in here. Yeah. It was good. We had nachos, we had burgers. I think I had a salad. It's amazing when you're through hiking. Like I crave. Do you ever crave vegetables?
No.
No, I do. Which is weird because like burgers are my jam. But whenever I come out, it's like I sometimes really have to battle with, do I want a burger or a salad? And
burger always.
It was, well, I had both because I had burned a few calories, but yeah, so that was section A.
That's section A. So we took a 0, ate lots of food, had multiple showers.
Yeah, did some laundry.
Yeah, and then section B started.
Well, hold on.
What?
Because we need to like do a pause.
Okay.
So we just took a break to see where we were with the filming and realized that we did 45 minutes. And we're only supposed to do an hour, so we made ourselves some notes so that we would stay focused and on time. So We're going to go through each one of the sections and just kind of say some highlights, maybe a low light, and tell a quick story. So if you do want to find out more, like I've got much more detailed videos on YouTube on my channel, Rocky Mountain Scrambler, and then Instagram, my posts there as well. And then also I've started writing up, I have section A done on my blog on my website. So if you like to read your story or your adventure, check out that. But otherwise, I'd say my YouTube videos are, I just go through day by day, which has so maximum information and all the pretty pictures and so on. So I would check that out. So let's talk about section B. So section B was from Coleman to Kananaskis, about 200 kilometers. And it's a great section if you don't want to mess around with the permit system, which is pretty annoying. That's the section for you. Some of the nice highlights, I would stay at Window Mountain Lake again. That was really pretty. It was busy, but for good reason. It was very nice. The High Rock route takes you there. Other really nice campgrounds would be Dutch Creek and North Racehorse Creek. Were nice. We didn't stay at either of those. We just kind of had lunch or snack there, but they're really nice. More on Dutch Creek. We have a good story from that. Hidden Creek we stayed at. A really nice meadow. Out in the meadow, like we watched the sunrise and the peaks, alpenglow. It was really pretty. And then another one that we didn't stay at, but that we actually stayed another rainstorm through there, is Lost Creek. There was like chairs, like we hadn't sat in an actual chair in forever. Tables, some really cool things. And then of course Fording River Pass was gorgeous. Barrel Creek, right prior to that, there was a beautiful waterfall there that has a campground as well. Just a note on Fording River Pass, I can see in the future it becoming popular, and it's in like high alpine area, which is fairly fragile. So really focus on the leave no trace. Keep the soap out of the waterways. Make sure that you're being like bear smart, etc. Camping on
hard surfaces,
etc. All of those prime things. If you plan on going into that area, please do, because I could see that area shutting down eventually, because it was really pretty
fragile.
Yeah, and then so that's used to be where the Great Divide Trail ended back in the day, and then they've put in a seismic line that went down to Aldrich Creek. It's a deep dive down to Aldrich Creek, and then some creek crossings, and then a very long road walk on the Elk Lakes Road. But you get to Elk Lakes Provincial Park, and that was one of our top 5 campsites that we stayed at. Yeah. It cost a whole $5, first come first serve, and we had got there, and we were going to take a we were gonna like go for an adventure because it was only like 10 kilometers that day. We got there before 10 a.m. But yeah, we sat on the lakeshore the entire day, drank copious amounts of coffee, ate all our food, visited with people that walked by, and then we actually stayed 2 nights there. Yeah. We were supposed to do an alternate, but my shoes were done. They had big like holes in the side, and I just didn't think I should be doing a slightly scrambly section with shoes that were about to die. So but then we ended up doing a
bit of a scrambly section.
But at least it wasn't with like our big backpacks on. It was just a day pack. So we checked out Peten Glacier Basin and Falls, and that was a really nice day. We had beautiful weather for it, and that was definitely a highlight. And I guess we were just going to mention Tornado Saddle. We the campground before at Dutch Creek, we were about to leave. We had a snack, and we looked down the valley, and it just got dark.
Yeah, and cold and windy.
Yeah, so we're like, oh, this might be a time we need to put up the tarp. And that wind just went through, so we put up our tarp, and within like 3 minutes it was pouring and hailing
on us
for about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So we just made some coffee, and we the next thing on the trail there was called Tornado Saddle, which you don't want to be caught at Tornado Saddle.
We definitely would have been caught on top of that. So we made a wise choice.
It meant that we didn't do as many miles that day. I think we were still over 20 kilometers, but still. But so anything else you want to say about section B?
No, I think that was good.
Okay. Yeah. So do you want to talk about section C then?
Okay, so section C is 200 kilometer stretch from Kananaskis, and it takes you all the way up to Field. Some of the highlights there, you might be fully aware of Mount Assiniboine, Lake Magog, takes you up towards Sunshine Meadows, Egypt Lake, and then up to the famous rock wall. These are all Canadian highlights, and many of you may have heard of it, many of you have been there probably, but definitely a beautiful area. It was smoky when we went through, so Mount Assiniboine, we'd be lucky, we'd been there 2 times before, so we knew what it looked like, so we cruised through there pretty
it would have been
fast.
disappointing if that had been our first time, because it was pretty smoky. But yeah, like you said, we lucked out. But
one of the memorable moments for myself is going up to Wonder Pass, and they always talk about with thru hikers, they get a day of crazy hunger, and that was a day for the entire morning I was thinking about food, so the hiker hunger hit me that day.
I'm laughing because hiker hunger hit me like on day 2. That's why, men typically lose tons of weight through hiking, and women, of course, biologically are like, oh, but what if we get pregnant? Let's keep on some of that fat. So throughout the hike, I think I lost 5 pounds, and you lost...
I lost 30.
Yeah.
So
30, was it 30? Oh my God,
30.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely, my legs were so strong at the end. If I could maintain that, that'd be amazing. But anyway.
Yeah, I think the big highlight there is the rock wall.
Yeah.
That walk along the high ridges there is just, we've been there many times, and it is stunning.
It's awesome.
Every time.
And then the Northover. We did the Northover route, which is right at the beginning, which we really enjoyed. There was some scrambly sections that we like, and we got to experience this like burning sunset at Northover Tarns. However, we did meet 2 couples that ended up turning back on the different sections because the exposure was just too much for them. So just keep that in mind if you ever plan the Northover route. Like, be comfortable with exposure, and it's different like day hiking it versus when you've got a big backpack on. So just
it's about a 100-meter stretch where one side is quite exposed and the other is medium exposed. So you have to go slow, be careful. Yeah.
And then I guess the other thing we were going to mention about, so once we got into Banff, Banff was bursting. So Burstall Pass Campground, Marvel Lake Campground were, I think, Marvel Lake Campground was definitely over capacity, and Burstall there was a lot of tents in there that I'm not sure all had tent sites. So just a reminder that the national parks system operates at 100% capacity. So if you don't have a reservation, that's because somebody else has already paid for that campsite. We experienced a couple times going through, people are like, oh, well, but nobody's here and it's 7 o'clock. That doesn't matter. Like, we rolled to camp at like 8 o'clock a couple of times. We know people that are putting on like 30 kilometers, 40 kilometer days don't get to camp until 9 o'clock. So don't assume that just because nobody's there that the person who reserved it might be coming there. So that's something. And if you do have a spot reserved, and I know so many people, and we've been guilty of this too, in the past, if you know that you're not going to be able to make a campsite, so like, you book it in January, and then say that weekend in July or August or whatever is supposed to have horrible weather, and you plan on not going, then cancel. Phone and cancel and give somebody else a chance to get that. So that's the one thing that we wanted to say about that. There's more that we could talk about in Section C. We actually already taped this, and we spent 30 minutes on Section C. So I'm just going to turn the book, and we're going to talk about Section D.
Section D, from Field to Sass Crossing. This is the shortest section of the Great Divide Trail, 105 kilometers, but it is pretty remote. You're going up the old Blaeberry River, but before that, you got to go from Field up to the Burgess Shale trail,
which was like 1,000 meters in
pretty steep.
I want to say 5K. It was really steep, but we were in super good shape, it was fine. And once we got to the Burgess Shale, remember the fireweed was just like profuse. We actually ended up running out of water that day.
It was a hot, dry section of the trail.
And so once we got to Yoho Lake, we cameled up, but from that point, like all along the ice line is premier. We took an alternate route up Kooitnock, which to Kooitnock Pass is lovely trail. Down the other side it's a little spicy, this guy. It's just like those and big boulders to get through, and you're like, gee, I hope that boulder doesn't tip over. And then when you got down to the bottom, we saw a bunch of bear prints, which was just to give you the extra feeling that you are in the wilderness. But then the trail, we found there was flagging there. It went up. We called it the luge because it just like there were some points that like I was grabbing onto plants like right here, like it was just so steep. Yeah, it was like climbing a ladder. Yeah, a slippery ladder of that section. Yeah. To just get out of the valley up to Kooitnock Gap. Yeah. And we were supposed to see a great vast valley, but we were in the clouds. Yeah. So the guidebook is talking about like how beautiful it is, and it was just clouds all around us. So we stopped and made coffee because we're like, well, maybe it'll clear. It was around noon, and sometimes it clears around noon. It did not. It started to rain on us. Yeah. So we knew that we were supposed to look for this in the app. It says an island of trees. And so we started descending, which if you do this trail too early, evidently there's a cornice there. But we descended this steep shale, and we could see just kind of in the foggy mist, we saw the island of trees. We're like, okay, that's where we're supposed to head. And it's raining, so like dealing with your GP or your phone when it's raining is annoying. So we got to the island of trees, and it's just pouring. Yeah. You can hear, remember how you could hear down the sides because you're kind of in a bit of an amphitheater there. Yeah. The rain just pouring down the side of the mountain. So we were hanging out underneath a tree, and we're like, should we put up the tarp or should we keep going? And out of the mist, our friend Nicole, who we had met at Porcupine Campground, just comes out of the mist. Hey, hello. Hey guys. And we're like, oh, not only are we like meeting somebody in this very random remote spot, but we know them. It's someone we know and we've met before. Yeah. So we hiked with Nicole for the next 2 days, I believe, after that. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah. And another highlight, kind of spicy highlight of that, there was another alternate so that you avoid doing a road walk, and it was the Collie Creek crossing, which we did at not the most opportune time in the day. It was about 3 o'clock. Yeah, later in the afternoon. It was intense. Mark went across first because we thought send the 6'1" guy, and because if he makes it, then well, if he doesn't make it, then we know none of us can go. But he made it, and it looked okay. It was only like up to like above your knees. Just above my knee, yeah. So like, okay. So then I go in, and I must have stepped like 6 inches ahead of him. And I got caught in this eddy, and I actually had a moment, there was like one slight moment of panic, and then my brain just went into like, oh, there's no panic. Yeah. Because survival if you panic, you're gonna go in. And so this glacial water is going in, it's shooting up to my hips. I had my phone in my pocket. It didn't charge for a day and a half, but it's fine now. And so I had to kind of basically muscle through that. And I was just standing strong in it. And so Nicole and Mark are kind of yelling like, try this, try that. And Mark had said like, take a step back. And I was trying to get footing. That's why I was kind of stuck there, is because I was moving my one foot to get purchase. And the river current kept like whipping me around. Like I did like a super crunch because my hip whipped around, and then I had to like pull back because if you turn around, like you're gonna tumble down the current, which is not good. So I finally found purchase, my foot, and it was about 6 inches back where he would have been, and managed to get across. And then Nicole did not follow the same route that I took. So that was a little spicy. We got to the other side, and I was like, "Okay, guys, I'm gonna need like 5 minutes to decompress and think about that." But yeah, the rest of it wasn't bad. There were some bushwhacky. Yeah. What were those bushes that we hate? The juniper bushes. The juniper bushes. Shoreline where my God. They just wrecked a pair of pants of mine. They're so sharp, the thorns. I can't imagine. And by then I was wearing pants again. I had given up on the whole shorts, and I was so grateful. Like I had scratches through my pants and my rain pants from those things. They were horrendous. So the junipers in section D They were nasty. But then once we got onto the house floodplain,
Yeah.
man, it was pretty. One of our last days, it was smoky, but we had a really nice supper right next to the floodplain. It was random camping there. So we just picked a nice spot next to this little kind of cut off pool that, like, obviously earlier in the season the river had gone through, but now was just a nice little reflective pool. And that's one of my happier little memories there. Yeah. And then the next day we crossed the river 20 times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Braiding everywhere of the House River.
When we were preparing for this back in spring of 2021, and we were watching these videos of people walking through the river with their shoes on. Yeah. And we're like, why would they do that? That's stupid. Now their shoes are wet.
Well, we know why.
There's no point. There's no point in taking off your shoes. And that's why thru hikers wear trail runners, and like not Gore-Tex, because once you get the Gore-Tex wet, they stay wet forever, and boots are just too heavy to when they're wet. So trail runners dry pretty quickly. Yeah. Although I don't think they last as long, because we went through about
wet
3.
All the time, they break down.
Yeah, which makes sense. But yeah, and then that got us to Sass Crossing, and Sass Crossing has a buffet, and we were so happy that we were afraid that COVID, because buffets kind of dropped off the map.
That's for sure.
But they had the buffet. And man, there was a bunch of thru hikers got there at the same time. I'm sure the manager was just like, oh, losing money today. But yeah, so that gets us to section E. Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
Which goes from Sass Crossing to Jasper, 192 kilometers. It takes you up out of Banff into some wild areas. You go up Owen Creek towards Michelle Lakes. And Michelle Lakes is this gorgeous set of lakes tucked in underneath the second highest point on the GDT, which we stayed at Michelle Lakes, and then the next morning went up to the pass, and there was a peak just above that.
That we had planned, that was part of the plan, but all morning. Well, so it was the smokiest when we were going up. That was the smokiest day. It was depressing. But when we got up to Owen Pass, the wind was just like howling. But then we realized that, hey, wait a minute, we can see mountains again. Yeah. So then our stay at Michelle Lakes was nice, which is in the White Goat Wilderness.
Yes, that was, yeah.
And so then we had the next morning, the clouds were down low on this peak that we wanted to do. So we're kind of bummed, but we're like, well, we'll just take our time. I had only scheduled like a 16-kilometer day. Haley was back with us by that point. Yeah. And sorry, I took over the conversation.
Well, I was just going to say we went up and hoping the clouds would dissipate when we got to the high point, this high peak, and luckily enough, they did.
It did.
You could see little patches of green as the clouds went by, and eventually they cleared out, so we could see the Owen ice field, which is massive. You could see down to Michelle Lakes. Which again is probably one of my highlights of
it was really pretty.
E.
Yeah. And it was an easy little peak. It was just a steep climb. Yeah. We joked that it was all our heavy breathing that cleared the clouds up there. Yeah. But yeah, so we spent like a good hour up there.
Did.
Yeah. And so Nicole was back with us again. There was another and then two more
parties that were coming through along with us the entire day too.
So it was kind of a group day that day. And then we dropped down to, was it Waterfall Creek, and then up to a pass. And when we got up to the pass, we recognized our first mountain, Mount Amory, that's in Banff. And so we had a moment of like, oh, we're home. Yeah. That was the whole, of hiking home to Jasper was kind of neat.
Recognize those home peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that point, we went down to Pinto Lake, stayed the night there.
Met a couple of teachers, maybe you're watching, that watched our was it 2020 convention. We did a thing on Jasper hikes there, and so that was kind of fun. It was a busy campground.
It was. I think we got pancakes that day too.
Oh my god, they gave us pancakes. Yeah. Thank you so much. We still call them pancakes.
Dutch pancakes.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah, with syrup. Yeah. Oh, it was maybe so good. Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, from Pinto Lake, we went up to Cataract Pass, which is just on the edge of Jasper National Park, our home range. Stayed there a night, and then continued into Jasper. Did part of the Brazeau loop, coming up and over Jonah's Shoulder, down to Pabokton, and then up to Moline Pass. And then we're getting so close to the skyline, which is one of the sought after trails.
But let's talk about Moline Pass, like
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
So Moline Pass itself is gorgeous. You can day hike it. I think it would be like just over 20K if you day hike Moline Pass. It's really pretty. There's like some lakes up there. You have to venture a little bit off the trail to see the lakes. The pass is nice too.
Yeah.
But so it was great until we got down into the valley, and then those willows were aggressive and definitely slowed us down.
Yeah.
And there were some down trees, some sections of down trees.
Ooh.
So we rolled into camp late.
It was
that night.
just about dark by the time
I
we
was
rolled into
cranky.
Trapper. Yeah.
Yeah, we
hiker hunger again.
oh my god, yeah, we were, and we just like we didn't want to stop for a break because because it was getting dark.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we like ate or put up we usually split duties. So I think I put up the tent. He went and got water, started supper, and we ate supper, went to bed. Woke up, and then the next morning we had waffles.
We did.
We were going through Moline Lake, and
at the Waffle House.
yeah, and it was funny when we were ordering. Didn't we just get one to share or something? Because we had gotten some bakery goods, and like as I'm like the lady's like, is that all? I'm like, yep, and Mark's like, and another waffle.
Yeah, we got 2 more things.
And I remember thinking like, geez, we don't need two waffles, but like we ate the crap out of those waffles. They were good.
Yeah.
So I recommend that, stopping there
Yeah.
on your way through. And then and we got to use like running water. That was fun.
Yeah.
And then we hit the skyline, and
the wind gusts on the skyline that
holy.
day were almost
Intense.
60 kilometers an hour. So we
Yeah.
didn't have a chance to really sit
Yeah.
down and enjoy the skyline.
But was that the third time we've done the skyline?
Yeah.
And every time we've done the skyline, like there's either like I remember the first time it was like -10 in
snowed.
July.
Yeah.
And then the second time it snowed and then this third time the wind. Like I was laughing because as I was hiking, like I had to have my pole out to brace me. Otherwise it would have knocked me right over. Like
Mhm.
and like I was holding strong, but it was really strong.
It was tough. Which is okay. We were pushing for home anyway.
Yeah.
So we went from
Yeah.
Snowbowl to Jasper all in a day.
Yeah.
Just to save some time because section F and G we needed an extra day.
Yeah.
So we had to push for home there.
I had realized as I was like looking through, there was this day that I had a 33 kilometer day with 2,000 meters of elevation. Like, I don't know what like April Bridget was thinking, but she wasn't thinking clearly. So we needed to get to Jasper a day early so that we could get on to starting F and G a day early, so that to give us that extra day, which was definitely a good choice. Okay, so F and G. So we hiked home. We got home. It was awesome. We like hiked right up to our front door, which was just satisfying.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be at home not halfway. I was gonna say halfway through. That was mid-August, so we've hiked all of July, mid-August, and did laundry at home and showered, and we didn't even have we did have a full day here because then we had to go. We had a friend pick us up, so we had to go back and hike the section back home because we want to hike all of it. And then we had our friends Chris and Kirsty, the lovely people that they are, drive us, and our friend Nicole. She ended up coming with us. The section between Kakwa and Jasper, it's like around a 13. You could probably do it in quicker than 13.
11 might be the fastest you could do it.
But we had planned or paid we called him Kakwa Dan. Was it Kakwa Adventures? Is that
Something
it's
like
out
that,
of McBride? Paid him to drop us off a resupply at Blueberry Lake. It was pricey. It was $500, but it was worth it because then we didn't have to haul 13 days of food. And then when Nicole came with us, we got to split an extra. Yeah. So yeah, I recommend that. And he was lovely. When we got our resupply, there were fresh carrots and was it radishes and
crab apples.
Crab apples, which was just such a fun
fresh food.
Yeah. So we our friends, lovely people that they are, drove us up to the Kakwa Lake. We dropped our supply with Dan and McBride. Did this crazy road. We thought it would be good in the big truck, but it actually would be better in a smaller truck. Just because there was like some drop-offs that were...
Well, 70K of a road that had been engulfed by willows.
Yeah. It had at one point been a forestry road,
yeah,
but there's been no maintenance, and so there's washouts, etc. Yeah. So then we started off, and this section was definitely the wildest
Absolutely.
of all the sections. So if you want a wild wilderness route finding experience, F and G is definitely for you. We call it F and G in like maybe a different kind of meaning, F and G, because there were some very aggressive willow sections, route finding, river crossings that didn't end,
and the bog. The bog was the worst. There were sections of bog we just had to go knee deep half the time.
And even if you knew it was going to be knee deep, that would have been better. It was just that sometimes you'd be like, okay, just ankle deep, and then like boom, like up to your knee, and it was just like, it was just so frustrating. So that said, like there were a lot of frustrations in F and G, but there was a lot of like amazing things. Like we saw 3 caribou, so like 2 adult and 1 baby caribou up at Providence Tarns, which was one of the alternates that we took that we really enjoyed. The huckleberries. Holy crap!
Incredible this year.
We were purple. Like our hands, our mouths were purple. We probably looked like children. From where they dropped us off, like into Kakwa Lake, I think was the like biggest section of huckleberries, and then quite a few through there. But then how do we not see bears in there? Like, well, we were making lots of noise because we were eating their food. So, hey bear, don't mind us. But yeah, so what else do we want to say about
other highlights of that area? Big Shale Hill was a phenomenal high point. You could see into Jasper, you could see west, north. It was just an unreal vantage point to see where you had been and where you were going to go. And other highlights was
that's where I stopped.
Blueberry Lake, where we stopped to get our resupply things. This is a gorgeous little lake.
And that, like, so from Blueberry Lake up to the Jack Pine Pass, there's a high route there. That was like the prettiest day, but the day prior to that was our worst day, which I won't go into detail, but I'll leave out there. I did a podcast with the John Freakin' Muir pod with Doc. It's gonna March 7th, I think it goes out. So if you're interested in our worst day on trail, check out his podcast. He also has on YouTube. I'll be sharing it on my socials.
Spoiler alert, we were hypothermic, so
we were.
That might intrigue you.
There was some okay, so Jack Pine Pass was awesome. And then down into, we kind of like bipped in and out of Jasper. So we saw Mount Robson, like from the north, looking at Mount Robson. It was really cool because it's the highest thing all around. So it was pretty unmistakable. So that was really neat. Chown Creek, I think was one of the coldest river crossings. We did it first thing in the morning. So it was like before 8 a.m. But holy,
it comes directly out of the West Haven
glacier,
ice field, and it's massive.
So that was, and then there was what's another? Calumet Creek Campground was so pretty. So if you want, once again, wilderness, if you came, if Mount Robson opens next year, if you go out Adolphus Way and then you can go up Calumet Creek, you do have to cross the river again, which by the time we were there in later August, it was fine. Earlier in July,
it would be
an issue.
Different story.
But Calumet Creek Campground, it was just this little horse camp, but man, it was pretty.
It was pretty.
And then you go up to Moose Pass, which was like gorgeous that day, like the cloud was low and it was slightly raining, and I still just remember thinking like, my God, this is beautiful.
We were late August, so there was remnants of the huge flower garden that was there in July. It must have been
amazing there, definitely. So Moose Pass was real pretty, and then we dropped down to Colonel. One of the things to note about Colonel was right after that, the down trees.
It was like a jungle gym. Like there were so many down trees.
I tried to like videotape like the like absurdness of it, because you're just like winding in and around, and it took a while for us to hike down through there.
What was it, 5 kilometers took us?
A long time. And then man, that section's kind of we were getting it to the end there, so and it was getting colder. It was pretty rainy, But another really nice place that we stayed at, I think that was after Colonel, was Myette Lake, which is just a tiny little campground, and you're in Jasper. There were some of the sections or campgrounds for that section. We did need backcountry Jasper campgrounds. This is Frank, by the way. He's been like wandering. He's our mountain panther, our floofster. Okay, so you sit nice there. Myette Lake was really nice. We had there was a mountain, Mount Mahood.
Mahood.
Like, it just looks so cool. So like our last morning and night, like in the backcountry on this great journey, with Mount Mahood there, and there was a little fire ring, so we had a fire. We had a fire actually quite a bit in the campgrounds in the last. We're not big fire people, but we were consistently wet. I don't think, like, we mentioned the bog, but like our shoes and socks were wet every day, all day. That entire section. We haven't even mentioned Surprise Pass. Yeah, watch the videos as I put them out. They'll have way more detail in them. Lots of good stuff in F&G. But yeah, and then we hiked home to the highway, and our friend picked us up, and we came home, and then the next day we drove there and then walked the highway back, and we crushed 20 kilometers and like before noon, I think.
Yeah, August 29th was our last official day, and we finished it on the highway.
Yeah, so it was a little bit anticlimactic, because our last day of hiking was a road walk. And if you've ever driven from Jasper, like west, that is a crazy highway. So we started like at 7 a.m. because we wanted to beat, we should have started earlier, but to beat all the traffic, which we did pretty good. But yeah, so we did it.
That's it.
That's the Great Divide Trail. We highly recommend it. We would do it again. The only thing is the booking system is just so ridiculous. So it would be really great if Parks Canada could do something like the Pacific Crest Trail does, where you just get the one permit. And I don't know how they would do that. I don't know what it would look like, but it would just be nice. Otherwise, I think that's one of the biggest pains in the entire process of planning and actually hiking the thing, is nailing your permits down. I've heard a couple of people say, oh, like, I'll just hike it anyway. Please don't do that. You're messing with people that have actually gotten their permits. There are lots of beautiful things to do in the Rockies and beyond. So, but yeah, so if you guys have any questions, check out, like I said, the channels, my socials, and or email me, I guess, too, which is that's posted on my socials too. And yeah, do we have anything else that we want to say?
No, a bit of advice is, I would say, if you ever do this or a section of it, take your time and look at the beauty. Because you can have your head down and miss a lot of things. So take your time. Yeah,
and that's one of the things I think we mentioned about our coffee addiction. Yeah. Every day at, like, I don't know, 12 or 1, or it would kind of depend. Sometimes we would choose the spot, sometimes the spot would choose us. And we would just sit down and we would boil some coffee, and usually like hang out our tent so it would dry, so we're not carrying extra water, and just really enjoy where we were, which meant that we didn't put on like crazy high miles, but I was okay with that. It was the Great Divide Trail, especially for all of us teachers out there with our 2 months off. It's the perfect length to do that. And we feel pretty accomplished. We got tattoos. We're both wearing there we go.
So tight.
Yeah, tattoos. Yeah. So we really feel like it affected us, kind of changed our lives in a rockin' way. But yeah. So thanks for hanging in with us for this long. And I hope the rest of your convention's amazing.
Enjoy.
And hopefully hear from you. Bye. Bye.